Hey guys, today we're going to be working on transformations, and Miss Logan is going to give you guys a worksheet that you can do, follow along and fill in as we go. Excuse me. And so the first thing you need to talk about is you've done a little bit with transformations before. You've talked about reflections, translations, rotations. If you come up here into the top section, we're going to fill in a little bit more of these notes whenever I come back. But transformation is an operation that maps an original figure, and it's called the pre-image. And it maps it onto a new figure called the image. Now, transformation can change different things in the shape. We'll talk a little bit more about that as I come back. You need to realize right now that there are 4 types of transformations, and we will fill these other blanks above here in tomorrow. But the 4 types of transformations are translations, reflections, rotations, and dilations. And we'll be doing translations, reflections, and rotations before Christmas. We'll do dilations after Christmas. Now, an object or an image, something can be reflected over specific lines, and the 2 lines that we're going to be talking about in our graph is reflecting things over the x-axis and over the y-axis. So you'll notice down here in these problems that, like on number 1, we're doing a reflection in the x-axis, number 2, it's in the y-axis, number 3 is in the x-axis, and number 4 is in the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those axes. I'm going to highlight the x-axis on number 1, the y-axis on number 2, the x-axis on number 3, and the y-axis on number 4, based on the axes that we're supposed to be making this reflection on. Okay, so now that you have your axes highlighted, you will look right up here and you see in number 1 that triangle ABC has vertices A, B, and C, and we're given the coordinates. So we're going to graph the original, or what we call our pre-image, and we're going to graph point A, which is at 1, 6. So we're going to go right 1 and then up 6. This is point A. And then we're going to graph point B, which is at 8, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up 3. And then we're going to graph point C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 2, right there. So we have our points. You can take your straight edge, and you can just connect those points together, the vertices of your triangle. Okay, and so we have point A, B, and C, and it says we're supposed to take those points and we're supposed to make a reflection in the x-axis, which we like to think of as over the x-axis. So it's going to actually be flipping the shape over. And an easy way to think about that is, if you look here, if point C is 2 spaces above the x-axis, then C prime will be 2 below. And if B prime is 3 above, then, B is 3 above, then B prime will be 3 below. And if A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 above, then A prime will be 6 below. Right there. And then you'll just go ahead and label those with these little apostrophes that you see I've written here. An A with an apostrophe, that means A prime, or that's the image point. So A prime, and we have B prime, and we have C prime. Then we're going to go ahead and connect those together just like we did before. And you have your image. And it's a reflection of the original ABC. You can see that we could fold our paper right there on the x-axis. They would match up. Then we're going to come over here to these places where we're going to put our new coordinates right over here for A prime, B prime, and C prime. Our new A, instead of going to 1, 6, we're going to go to 1, negative 6. And for B prime, instead of going to 8, positive 3, we're going to go to 8, negative 3. And then C prime, instead of going from 4 to 4, 2, we went to 4, negative 2. And so what I want you to do now is take a look at how the x and the y coordinates change. So if you look here at the x coordinate of each one of those points, the x coordinates did not change at all. It's still a 1, an 8, and a 4. So when we think about this, we can actually write an algebraic rule to represent it. We can say all our x and y values had a change or a transformation, And the transformation that happened here was that the x's did not change at all. So the x's remained the same. So we'll just put x as the beginning of our rule. Okay, then if you look though at your y values, the y values were positive 6, 3, and 2, and now they become negative 6, 3, and 2. And so our y values went from being positive to being negative. So the signs are opposite of what they were. So what you do then is you put this little negative sign here, which means that your y values will be opposite of what they originally were. So our rule will be xy's transformed into x and the opposite of y. Now I like to say the opposite of y instead of negative y here, and the reason why is because if these are positive, excuse me, they become negative. Well, if they were negative, then they would turn positive, but we still have to indicate that with the rule and this little sign that says do the opposite. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. So let's go over here to number 2. And if you're looking at number 2, you have a reflection in the y-axis. Actually, let me go ahead and skip down here to number 4, because I want to show you what I was talking about with the opposite and the rule. So coming down here to number 4, we're going to graph w, x, y, and z at the point 2, negative 3, and the point 4, negative 1, and then 8, negative 2, and then we have 3, negative 7. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and connect those together. And you guys should have a straight edge to do that. Okay, so we have all our original points, and this time we're doing a reflection in the y-axis, which I've already highlighted here. So you will take each point just like we did before, and like point W is 2 to the right, so your new W will be 2 to the left. And you'll continue on with that. Here's W prime. X is 4 to the right. X prime will be 4 to the left. Y is 8 to the right, so Y prime will be 8 to the left. Z is 3 to the right, so Z prime will be 3 to the left. All right, then we're going to go ahead and connect those vertices together so we can see our trapezoid. We know this is a trapezoid, it tells us right up here, but also you can see that because you have one pair of parallel lines in your quadrilateral. XW is parallel to YZ. Excuse me. So now we have our image right here, and we're going to go ahead and label our image points. And you can see right here that the W, instead of going to positive 2 and down 3, we went to negative 2 and then down 3. And then instead of going to 4, negative 1, we went to negative 4, negative 1. And for the Y, instead of going to 8, negative 2, we went to negative 8, negative 2. And then for Z, instead of going to 3, negative 7, we went to negative 3, negative 7. Okay, and now what I want you to do is take a look at your X and Y values like we did before, and let's see, how does this X, X, and X, all those X values in the ordered pairs, how do they change? And you'll notice this was a 2, 4, 8, and 3, and they all turn to the opposite sign. So when we're working in our first part of the rule, all of our X values went opposite of what they were. So if they were positive, they went negative. Okay, now let's look at our Y values and let's see if there's any change there. Okay, and our Y values were negative 3, negative 1, negative 2, and negative 7. Those remain the same. So now our Y's did not change, so we just get to put a Y. All right, so that's what you're going to be working on here. Wherever the change was, whichever variable, the X or the Y, whichever one switches signs. So like here, the Y values went from positives to negatives, then you're going to put that in the rule. If it's the X values that went from positive to negative, then you put that in the rule as well. And remember what I said earlier, if it's positives going negative, then you put that in the rule. But if it was negative numbers turning positive, you would still in the rule indicate that with a minus sign to tell that you changed your sign on your number. They went from positives to negative, or they went from negatives to positives. So either way, your rule is going to include a minus sign on the X or the Y based on which axis you're reflecting over. So I just wanted you guys to take a look at those and just make sure that you understand what's going on there. If you have any other questions, tomorrow I'll be back and we can talk about it a little bit more, and I think that'll help you guys out. Let me go ahead and do just one more with you, and then I will let you guys go. So look back to number 3. Let's graph -8, -6 for point P, and then -5, -2 for point Q, and then 2, -1. Oop, I went the wrong direction there, guys. 2, -1 for point R. Let's connect those together. And I think this will demonstrate what I was saying about using that minus sign in the rule regardless of if it's positives going negative or negatives going positive, because we're reflecting here over the x-axis. And so whenever you make your new R and your new Q and your new P prime, let me go ahead and connect those together. You'll notice that your in your P value right here, it went from a -8, -6. It's still -8, but it's +6. And then Q went from being -5, -2 to -5, +2. And then R went from being 2, -1 to 2, +1. And so you'll notice here, guys, that the X values did not change at all. They're still the same. But when you look at your Y values, they went from being negatives to being positives. And so the way we indicate that is in the rule, like we did before. Our X values did not change at all, so our X's remain X. But our Y values took an opposite sign. When they were negative, they turned back positive. So again, we still go ahead and show that by putting this little minus sign to indicate that we have an opposite sign on our Y value than we did before. Excuse me. Okay, guys, so what I need y'all to do today is to go ahead and you'll go back and finish number 2. And then if you'll flip your page over, I want you guys to also go and finish 5 through 10 on the back of this first page. And so if you guys will get those done for today, that is your assignment, and I appreciate it.